makes you feel. The warmth of a home becomes even more enhanced.
Opioid addiction gets between you and what you love. Once monthly.
Y'all ready for this?
Activities Association State Playoffs. I'm with James, along with Dane Stewart and Jeff Hansen. The three of us will be taking through the brackets and then talk about some of the teams and some of the key matchups. We're going to start with Class 1A, start with the smallest schools. The 8-player bracket, where Rich is the two-time defending state champion. The Rebels get a bye and then are going to play the winner of Water Canyon at St. Joseph. St. Joseph beat Water Canyon in the regular season. They lost to Rich. The 5 seed, Utah Military Academy Hillfield, will play the 4 seed, Whitehorse. Guys, any hot takes on the first bracket?
No real surprise here, Rich. I think the heavy favorite in 8A and an impressive year rewarded with the number 1 seed.
In the bottom half of the bracket, the 2 seed Milford gets a bye and will play either 10th seeded Panguitch or 7 seeded Utah Military Academy at Camp Williams. 3rd seeded Altamont waiting for the winner of the opening round game between 6th seeded Monticello and 11th seeded Monument Valley. Monticello's been the state runner-up 3 years in a row. They've only been competing in this classification for 3 years. They've been in the final every time.
Yeah, Monticello, they've played really well all year long. I look at Milford on this half of the bracket. Carson Chaney, 23 touchdown passes this year. They've been really good.
You've never seen an 8-man football game. It's wide open. Yeah. It's wildly entertaining, right? In Class 1A, the 11-player version, Kanab, the state runner-up last year, is the top seed this year. The 8-1 Cowboys' only loss was at 2A San Juan. Kanab gets a bye. They face either 8th-seeded Gunnison Valley or 9th-seeded North Sevier. 5th-seeded Miller travels to 4th-seeded North Summit. Both teams 5-5. North Summit won the head-to-head regular season meeting.
That was a great regular season game. North Summit and Miller get a chance to see that again here in the second round. That'll be a fantastic 4-5 game.
In the bottom half of the bracket, the two-time defending champs from Beaver are the 2 seed. They will host 7th-seeded Parowan. 6th-seeded Enterprise travels to 3rd-seeded Duchesne.
That Duchesne and Enterprise game, I think that's going to be a lot of fun. Duchesne has turned a lot of heads this year. They've been really good all season long.
In Class 2A, San Juan, winners of 4 consecutive state titles, is the 1 seed with an 8-2 record and losses to 1A Beaver and 3A Manti, so unbeaten against 2A competition. San Juan gets a bye, then they'll face either 8-seeded Providence Hall or 9th-seeded Judge Memorial. 5th-seeded Emory, a finalist last year, will travel to 4th-seeded Summit Academy.
Yeah, San Juan, really the cream of the crop. And Neves, if you haven't seen this young man, this is a loaded roster for San Juan. I think the heavy favorite in 2A.
The 2 seed, South Severe, hosts 7th-seeded Delta, while 3rd-seeded South Summit, the 2A North Region champ, will host 6th-seeded American Leadership Academy.
South Severe 9-0 going into last night's game against San Juan. That's their only loss of the season. Multiple guys averaging more than 70 rushing yards per game. That's a fun offense to watch.
In Class 3A, undefeated Cedar is the top seed. They get a bye and face either 9th-seeded Ogden or 8th-seeded Canyon View for a spot in the semis. The path to the other semifinal berth in this portion of the bracket, 13th-seeded Ben Lomond travels to 4th-seeded Juab, and 12th-seeded Carbon is at 5th-seeded Grantsville.
That Juab-Grantsville matchup, if they were both got out of that first round, would be interesting. Canyon View coming in at 8, their record maybe a little underwhelming, really talented with Ryder Miller and company. It'd be interesting if they get past Ogden and see how they match up with the number 1 seeded Reds.
In the other half of the bracket, the 2 seed Morgan's the defending champ. They have played in the state title game 5 times in the last 6 years, claiming 3 crowns. Morgan gets a bye. They'll face either 10th seeded Logan or 7th seeded Richfield. 3rd-seeded Manti gets a bye, and they play the winner of 11th-seeded Union and 6th-seeded North San Pete.
Morgan, they're giving up 14 points a game on the year. When they play in their classification, just 5 points per game. The Trojans have been dominant defensively this year.
In Class 4A, undefeated Ridgeline. The Region 11 champs are the 1 seed. 17th-seeded Murray is at 16th-seeded East. 8th-seeded Park City gets a bye and will host either 9th-seeded Skyview or 24th-seeded Juan Diego.
That East Murray game, really interesting. This was kind of the turning of the year for East. That was their first win of the year, got things going for Drew Roos and company. That 16-17 game really intriguing.
4th-seeded Hurricane gets a bye and will play either 20th-seeded Dixie or 13th-seeded Highland. The Rams are the Region 10 champs. Region 8 champ Provo gets a bye, and the 5th seed will face either 21st-seeded Mountain View or 12th-seeded Salem in the second round.
Provo gets the bye of the 5th seed. That's a team I don't think anybody in this 4A bracket wants to face. Garrick Orchard at quarterback, Ronnie White, that passing game has been dynamic, that they're peaking at the right time.
The defending champs of the number 2 seed, Crimson Cliffs, has an 8-game winning streak after losing to 6A Lone Peak in the season opener. Either 18th-seeded Bear River or 15th-seeded Timpanogos will play the Region 9 champs in the second round. 7th-seeded Stansbury will host either 10th-seeded Mountain Crest or 23rd-seeded Uinta in the second round.
Yeah, boy, potential for that Stansbury Mountain Crest rematch was a great game where special teams played a factor, and that Timpanogos offense, they could put up points if they get past Bear River.
In the final quadrant, 3rd-seeded Snow Canyon gets a bye and will play either 14th-seeded Green Canyon or 19th-seeded Desert Hills. Region 9 receiving 4 of the 8 byes in this class. 6th-seeded Pineview is waiting for either 11th-seeded Skyline or 22nd-seeded Tulane.
Skyline with Xavier Kochi at quarterback. They've done a lot of really good things this year, turned a lot of heads. That potential second-round matchup with Pineview could be a lot of fun.
A lot of growth for Skyline this year.
Yeah.
In Class 5A, West is the 1 seed. The Panthers have outscored teams by an average score of 56-7 this year. West will play 16th-seeded Pleasant Grove or 17th-seeded Northridge in the second round. 8th-seeded West Jordan waits for either 9th-seeded Bountiful, the defending 5A champs, or 24th-seeded Clearfield.
Yeah, Bountiful West Jordan be really interesting. That West Jordan offense been great in region play where they have enough to go up against that stingy Bountiful defense. Bountiful positioned here to make a run again in 5A.
4th-seeded Orem, the Region 7 champion, gets a bye and then plays either rival Timpview, the 13th seed, or 20th-seeded Wasatch. Woods Cross, the Region 6 champion, is the 5th seed, facing either 12th-seeded Olympus or 21st-seeded Cypress in the second round.
This might be the section of all of the brackets that I'm most excited about. Some potentially really good matchups in the second round. You get a Timpview-Orem rivalry in the playoffs. That's always a ton of fun. And then Olympus and Woods Cross, stylistically, those are 2 similar teams. If they meet up in the second round, that could be a game that comes down to the wire.
Fremont, the Region 5 champ, is the 2 seed. They play the winner of the game, matching 15th-seeded Alton, 18th-seeded Roy. 7th-seeded Brighton will host either 10th-seeded Granger or 23rd-seeded Taylorsville.
In case that looks wrong, Granger, the 10 seed, what a year for the Lancers this year. Finished third in their region. Great defense, really potent offense as well.
3rd-seeded Springfield gets a bye and will play either 14th-seeded Hunter or 19th-seeded Spanish Fork. The last bye goes to the 6th-seed Box Elder. Either 11th-seeded Westfield or 22nd-seeded Dumont will make a trip to Brigham City for the second round.
That Westfield-Dumont game in the first round, both of those teams have had some ups and downs throughout the year, but when those teams are going well, they are as good as anybody in this classification. That could be a lot of fun.
In Class 6A, there's just one first-round game this week. Layton takes on Cedar Valley in a 16-17 matchup. That game will be on Friday with a time to be determined. Next week, the second round kicks off with a full slate of games, starting with the 1-seed Corner Canyon. The Chargers played the state title game 6 years in a row and won 4 of those games, including the last 2. They'll play the winner of the Layton-Cedar Valley game. And with just 17 teams in Class 6A, everyone else is getting a bye, so all these games are 2 weeks out. 8th-seeded Syracuse at 9th-seeded Westlake, 13th-seeded Riverton at 4th-seeded Mountain Ridge. The Sentinels are the Region 2 champions. At 12th-seeded Weber visits 5th-seeded Harriman. The Mustangs are 9-1 with a loss to Mountain Ridge, and those two are seeded to meet in the quarterfinals, assuming they advance.
That would be a juicy one. How about that Syracuse-Westlake game as well? That would be really tight in that 8-9 matchup.
15th-seeded Copper Hills is at the 2-seed Sky Ridge. 10th-seeded Lehigh visiting 7th-seeded American Fork, although Lehigh did win the regular season matchup there. 14th-seeded Bingham is at 3rd-seeded Davis, the Region 1 champion. 11th-seeded Farmington is at 6th-seeded Lone Peak. The Knights were state finalists last year.
I think Lehigh at 10. I think there's maybe a little bit of a sigh of relief. You want to avoid corner. If you're coming from Region 3, you try to avoid corner. At the 10 seed, they get a Region 3 matchup with AF, but they do avoid the corner side of the bracket. That should be a lot of fun. That's really the Region 3 section here with AF, Lehigh, and Sky Ridge all seeded up to play each other.
Right. So you knew the RPI going into this final week. You see the results. Are there any big surprises here? Did this largely play out the way you expected?
Yeah, I don't know that I saw a ton of surprises that last week. I think, obviously the Lehigh, that 10 seed, they were kind of right around 8 or 9, and the way that math kind of works out, they get the 10 seed there. But I don't know that I saw a ton of changes from the week 9. Yeah.
No, not a ton of shakeup. I think it was pretty much what we expected to see. But it's still a lot of really good matchups. And even though you know what's coming, man, there's going to be a lot of good football ahead of us.
All right, still ahead, we're going to jump into our breakdowns of every single classification. We'll start with the 8-player teams, 1A, 2A. Players we'll all need to keep our eyes on throughout the tournament. Straight ahead, we'll be talking about your favorite teams in every classification coming up.
Back to the UCCU Saving Spotlight.
Today's play of the day goes to Becky, a single mom who just got her son Max a youth debit card from UCCU.
This is a big win for Max, who knows that UCCU mobile banking makes it easy for his mom to add money to his debit card anytime.
It's also a big win for Becky, who knows it also makes it easy to monitor her child's spending anytime. Final score, 1 happy son, 1 responsible mom.
With the assist from UCCU.
Bucket list hikes, local races, challenging adventures, that one goal that means so much to you. Salt Lake Running Company has the gear and expert advice you need to start and finish strong. You'll be crushing that goal before you know it. With our trained and knowledgeable staff, an award-winning custom shoe fit process, and the head-to-toe products you need, SLRC will gear you up for your goal. Shop in-store at any of our locations along the Wasatch Front or shop online at slrc.com.
Okay. All right, it's time now to break down some of the brackets. We're going to start with the 8-man, and I think the thing that will confuse people here when they look at records is some of these teams play 8-man football all the time.
Yeah.
Some of them only play it some weeks, and they play 11-man football other weeks. So Rich is the 1 seed, but they're 2-0 in 8-man football. They play 11 the rest of the time. They don't seem to have any problem adapting.
They don't. And this is a really good Rich team. You look at Holmes, he's been great this year, 11 passing touchdowns, only 1 interception. And then you look at the support around him. He can run the ball really well. Also, you've got Weston out of the backfield to help with that rushing offense. And then their defense led by Grohl. He's got 70 tackles, 3 interceptions. This is a really complete Rich Rebel team. And you mentioned it, they haven't had any problem in 8-man this year.
No, there are some teams, though, that they play 8-man football all the time. Milford and Altamont, the way that they've played, especially as the season has gone on, they've gotten better. That Altamont offense, it's really, really good. Brendan Jessen, 32 total touchdowns. He does a little bit on the ground. He can catch touchdowns as well. And the Dallin Ledbetter has 27 touchdown passes. Altamont could surprise some people from that 3 seed.
You know, it's interesting, though, when you look at that 8-man bracket for Altamont, because 2 of their closest games this year were against Monticello and Utah Military Camp Williams, and they'll have to go through both of those 2 teams in this bracket. So, you know, some of their closer games, they'll get rematches, and be interesting to see how those play out, both for Altamont and for Monticello and Camp Williams, if they can put a run together in the 8-man bracket.
I think what you said about teams getting better, if NFL teams can get better over the course of a season, shouldn't teenagers be getting better over the course of a season, right? So some of these records can be a little misleading, especially when you factor in injuries and whoever missed 2 or 3 games along the way. Let's go to 11-man football, 1A. There's Beaver and Duchesne and Kanab. Let's start with the Beavers. They've been a force in this tournament. They don't win it all the time, but the title usually goes through them one way or another. You got to beat them. You got to beat them if you're going to win the title.
You got to beat them sometime. And look, this year, Duchesne and Kanab beat Beaver, which was kind of shocking to see, especially Beaver had defeated San Juan, who's a heavy favorite in 2A, but Davin Orton's been spectacular this year. They don't ask him to throw a ton, but he can run the football extremely well. The biggest key for Beaver in this one is if they have to have an opportunity where they've got to go through Duchesne again, they've got to find an answer for Goodliff. He's been fantastic, but this Beaver defense, they fly around, they force turnovers, and even special teams, they can get creative on you as you have a look at their schedule there. You see that loss to Duchesne by 1, the loss to Kanab by 12, but you know, the win over San Juan, decisive wins over North Summit, other teams, Millard. This is a really, really good group from Beaver once again.
Well, and those losses, those were close games. That Duchesne game came down to the final 2 minutes of the game when Duchesne was finally able to go up. And at Kanab, even at 26-14, that was a one-score game until the final minute of the game. Those were 2 really competitive games. Davin Orton, that Beaver offense, I think they're going to be okay. As you said, David, they're tried and tested. They know these playoffs.
Right. So let's go to Kanab now, and how much confidence do they get? I mean, we can talk about skill and talent, and that all matters, but we all know the emotion that comes with confidence can be really valuable.
I think Kanab is rolling high right now. I mean, you talk about, you know, wins over North Summit, wins over Duchesne. You look at Grady Anderson, who's 7 interceptions this year for this Kanab defense, and you have a look at their schedule there. I mean, even, you know, that loss to San Juan, they still put up 32 points on them. Duchesne game goes to overtime, but they get the win. It doesn't matter. Verosco, over 1,000 yards passing this year. Hayden Gubler's been a guy we've talked about all year long, over 8 yards a carry. I mean, when you've got that out of the backfield, you got a lot of options in 1A, and Kanab's going to be really tough.
I'm glad you mentioned Grady Anderson. 7 seems to be a magic number for him. 7 picks on the season. He's getting 7 tackles per game. Defense is what wins championships, especially in 1A football. You get into the rurals, you see those rushing attacks. You've got to be stout defensively. Ozzie Williams, Grady Anderson, those are the stalwarts for that Kanab defense.
So Duchesne, tough path here. They'd have to beat both teams, presumably, to win it. What do you think of their chances?
I think this is going to be a really good it can be a good run for Duchesne. We talked about Goodlife when we were talking about Beaver a little bit earlier. He can throw the ball, he can run the ball, but then you mix in Crum as well. Crum had over 1,100 yards rushing this year, and Goodlife 64% completion on his passes this season. And then that defense, Crum has a pair of interceptions, and they were both pick sixes. So this defense can fly around for Duchesne as well. As you have a look at their schedule to get there, again, the loss to Kanab, but close game against Beaver. I think it's really these 3 teams are the cream of the crop, and any of them can come out with a state championship this year.
I think Duchesne, they lost to Kanab in overtime. There was a lot that they can take away from that game that went really, really well. And when you go on the road to Kanab, that's a tough place to win. They played well. And look, Kason Crum, he does everything offensively. He's the leading tackler defensively. When you have a guy like that, and then you can supplement Nash and Goodlife in there, they got a lot of weapons. Duchesne, they're going to be okay.
Class 2A, San Juan. What do you think of their chances here, the way they've gone through this season?
I mean, this is just, it's like a roster that you would love to design if you could pick your host of 11 guys, right? And look, Neves continues to be back, continues to do what he's done his entire career, defeated Kanab, had the loss to Manti, had the loss to Beaver. That one was a bit of a surprise. Beaver was able to stun him with some special teams help, but they throw the ball extremely well. They've got a ton of athletes all over the field. This defense is really good. San Juan, I think head and shoulders probably the heavy favorite in 2A.
Yeah, Jagger Neves catches all the headlines, and he should. I mean, he does everything every single week. But this team's more than just Jagger Neves. That's what makes them so tough. Trip Palmer, more than 100 receiving yards per game. Bo Yeoman's a quarterback. He's just a sophomore. He's already got 23 touchdown passes on the year, has full command of that offense. And then defensively, George McNaughton has 14 sacks on the year. He's a menace on that defensive line. They're a handful.
And they've shown, unless they're playing up in classification, they're good for 40 points. They might be good for 50 or 60, but they're probably scoring 40 for sure, right? All right, coming up, we dive into the 3A and 4A classifications. Can anyone challenge undefeated Cedar? What about Ridgeline? Can Morgan make it back to yet another state title game? All that straight ahead. Stay with us.
With a Tab Spend checking account, you earn big rewards. It's hard to not make a scene.
Cash or card?
Oh, my card's right here.
That's a big card.
You should see how much it's earned me. Sorry, Grandma. Tab Spend isn't just another checking account. It's packed with benefits.
How do I get one?
Just scan this QR code or go to tabbank.com. It's all online and super easy to get started.
One of those long days working on your feet? Turn your aching feet to happy feet at Salt Lake Running Company. Our award-winning trained staff will provide a custom shoe fitting that will help you find the shoes, inserts, and socks that will make your workday the best it can be. Locally owned and operated for 30 years, SLRC offers rewards, training groups, races, and free community events. Visit us in-store or online today at slrc.com. Your work feet and workout life will get a boost.
All right, it's time now to take a look at Class 3A, and I'm really intrigued by what you guys think of this, because on the one hand, you got Cedar, you're undefeated, the record speaks for itself, right? Over here, you also have Morgan. We'll get to them in a second. Holy cow. And there are other contenders. Let's start with Cedar. Undefeated team. What do you think?
Man, this has been a team that's continued to answer the bell all year long. It felt like it took several weeks for people to be like, is this Cedar team for real? But as they've gone through their schedule, and really that Manti was when I started to take notice. You see the Richfield win, the Canyon View win, the Juab win, which, look, they had to come back in that game. This has been a tested group for Cedar, and they've answered the bell every time. Kelling's been phenomenal this year. DeMille's been really good as well, running the football. And this defense, 4 interceptions for Cox, 4 sacks for McGarvey. And we got a potential for a potential rematch with those Juab Wasps. They were down in that game, got a turnover, and then that offense started going for Cedar. This is a group that, man, you're kind of living the dream right now and see if they can continue on the hot streak they've been on all year.
We talked about Everett Kelling seemingly every single week, and you talk about Slade Parsons, that offense for Cedar. They've done a lot of really good things. That comeback against Juab doesn't happen without really stout defense in the second half. Caleb Brinkerhoff, Dominic McGarvey, they're really good at the defensive line. Both of them have 4.5 sacks on the year. Keaton Cox, 5 interceptions. That Cedar defense is probably better than it gets credit for. And when you come in playoff time, you got to have them step up, right? And then you sprinkle in Everett Kelling and Slade Parsons. Cedar's a handful.
Playing up early in the year, helping them, playing that 16-13 game. They know the nerves, tension late in the game. They've been there. It helped them a couple times in the regular season, probably help them in the playoffs. Yeah. All right, how about Grand High School here? The kids from Moab. Oh, excuse me, Grantsville.
Yeah, look, this is a Grantsville team that this has been a really good team for a number of years. Got a nice win over Richfield this year. Dallin Van Vliet, and I don't know, I think I'm saying that right, but man, he's been spectacular. 61% completion percentage, over 1,000 yards passing, 11 touchdowns. And then they got Murdoch to run the football as well. He's averaging over 6 yards a carry, 7 rushing touchdowns. They've got some nice versatility in that offense. You see, they took Juab to overtime, some close battles with Manti and Morgan. This is a Grantsville team. If you're not ready for them, they're going to come up, punch you right in the mouth. It's got to be a team you got to be ready for. But look, see if they can put together a run. They've done so in past years, Jeff.
Yeah, well, it feels like I'm a one-trick pony. I keep talking about defenses, but when you talk about Grantsville, you have to look at their losses, right? Especially against Manti and Morgan. They held those guys to like season low in points. Morgan only scores 24. Manti only scores 23. Those are high-powered, high-flying offenses. This Grantsville defense is going to show up every single week. They're going to keep Grantsville in every game that they play. Can they do enough offensively to pull off an upset along the way?
You bring up Manti. What are the odds? What are the chances, given the way this tournament stacks up and what you just mentioned about them and the defense that they've got?
Yeah, Manti could do a little bit of everything. That defense is getting better as the season goes on. For me, it starts on the offensive side for Manti. Talapapa with 17 rushing touchdowns. He's averaging 100 yards per game. He's also averaging 8 tackles per game, so he does a little bit of everything. You love that about rural football. A lot of guys that go both ways and are stars both ways. Stone Mortensen and Ty Pringle as wide receivers. And then Carter Mason, he's started to figure it out at the quarterback position. He's playing his best football as the season has gone along. They've also got a D1 edge rusher coming off the defensive line, and Mac Olson just committed to Fresno State a couple of weeks ago. Fresno State doesn't find their way to Manti very often. You got to be a pretty big name to get out there.
They were the preseason pick in the 3A South to win that region, and I think number 2 preseason in 3A. I wonder if their offense can have enough consistency. You talk about some of the defense they're going to have to face, and Mason has thrown for over 2,000 yards this year, 23 touchdowns. We talked about Talapapa, who we love watching him, beast of a back. They've got to find a way to get that offense consistent to make a playoff run, because they are going to go up against really good defenses. They're going to have to find a way to get 30, 35 points if they want to put together a run.
I mentioned some of these other teams playing up. Who played up more than Morgan? I mean, they took the whole first half of the season, basically, and they were just looking for all comers. And it looks like it's prepped them for a run. And I'm sure when they see the brackets revealed and see they're not number 1, they're thinking, really? We're not the 1 seed with all the bigger schools we played?
Math is going to math.
Math is going to math, but in your opinion, did math correctly?
Well, the challenge with this is that it's based off of winning percentage, so you can play up all you want, but when you play up to Skyview and you play up to Park City and you play up to Bountiful, who I think all had a lot of expectations coming in this year, but their records maybe weren't where we thought they would be at the beginning of the year. Well, so now you're mixing in winning percentage of 500, 600, 700 as opposed to 800, 900. And so that's going to alter the calculation. But look, this Morgan team was supposed to be replacing guys. They graduated guys last year, and their only loss, you see that Ridgeline game in week 1, and since then they've been on a tear. I don't know if anyone can slow them down. And if we get, Morgan and Cedar, if they can find a way to get that championship game, it's going to be a doozy. But they've even had injuries that they've had to play through. This has been a very tested Morgan team, not just from competition, but from some of the adversity they've faced as well.
Yeah, I think it's really easy to look at 9 wins in a row and say, oh yeah, Morgan rolled. This is easy for them. They faced adversity. They lost their quarterback for multiple games. They had to grit out some wins. That win against Provo in overtime, that's a huge win that they can reflect back on. The Morgan Trojans, they're really good, and Cade Randall is healthy at quarterback. He's been playing the last few weeks. He's been playing really, really well. Morgan, if I'm on that Morgan coaching staff, I love the seeding. Because, look, they don't need more motivation, but now they've got it, and I think Morgan can make a run.
And one more point on that. They've averaged giving up just 14 points a game, playing a bunch of 4A teams. Right. I mean, so that defense is stingy.
It's for real.
You're jealous. He's talking defense now.
I am.
All of a sudden, right?
Yeah, all of a sudden he takes the defense.
The bandwagon. There you go, on the bandwagon. Defense wins championships. All right, let's go to Class 4A. Ridgeline's number 1. Yeah. Ridgeline's had a phenomenal year. But Ridgeline was at this point a year ago and had a phenomenal year. I'm thinking the talk around that team, inside that team, has been, that's great, but playoffs have got to go differently this time.
I haven't been up to Thrillville yet this year, but even being a distant, it feels like there's a little more motivation this year, right? It feels like they know they let one get away last year. Look at those scores. I mean, this is just, no one has slowed them down. The fewest points they've scored is 34 this year. I mean, this offense has so many weapons you can't list them all. Between Nate Daly, Graham Livingston, and then you have a defense with Crew Jones, who's got 8 sacks, but he's being outdone by Cohen Richards. I mean, I don't know. I don't know how you match up with this team.
Like West, they're only giving up 7 points a game.
Yep.
Yeah, they're tough. I think all of last year I dubbed Ridgeline like they were kind of the Death Star team. They just destroyed everybody. Well, the Death Star got blown up in the end, right? I mean, we've all seen enough Star Wars to know that's how that plays out. I don't think they're the Death Star this year. This feels like a completely different mindset from Ridgeline. They're dominating, but they keep showing up. They haven't shown any give all season long. They're healthy. Graham Livingston has been battling some injuries. He's healthy. He's full go. Ridgeline is ready to finally get to where they've thought that they could get to the last couple of years and have come up just short.
Another team that is scheduled up, and I think will pay dividends for the 4A state tournament.
So as soon as he steals defense, you just pivot to the Star Wars references. You like that. So now, I don't know if we're going to have Star Wars sequel references, or are you going to go to other movie, trilogies, or all right. Well,
It's all part of the Jeff Hansen experience. You never know what you're going to get.
Jeff Hansen experience. All right, let's pivot to the other end of the state and Crimson Cliffs. Here's a team that has tasted playoff success and has some guys back, and who knows what it takes over the course of the next month or so.
Yeah, their only loss this year is to Lone Peak. Lost that game early on, and since they've been untouchable. And Van Daly, he has been an absolute stud out of the backfield for this Crimson Cliffs offense. 9 rushing touchdowns this year, over 6.5 yards per carry. And really, to me, the thing that stands out to me about this Crimson Cliffs team is you see their record there, but that win against Pineview. This was for the region championship, and Pineview's been great this year, and they just took it to them, 56-7 all over the Panthers. This Crimson Cliffs team has been getting stronger every week, and it's kind of like, we talk about Morgan and a group that had to replace a lot of starters, but man, they are playing really, really good football.
For Crimson to come out of that region unbeaten this year, in a year that was supposed to be a rebuilding year for Crimson, they lost so much talent from those back-to-back state championship teams. I don't know if anybody knew what exactly to expect from Crimson, and that whole region got better. Hurricane, Pineview, Snow Canyon, they've all been playing really good football. Crimson comes out on top. They're playing better football as the season goes along. Tono I. Anderson at quarterback, he's getting better. He's starting to really show command. And then Major Stokes, he's going to be a national recruit by the time his career is all said and done in high school. He's starting to really come into his own. He's doing it defensively. He's catching touchdown passes. He does everything.
He mentioned Hurricane. We got to talk about the Tigers. This was a team that was picked to finish last in their region, and they've got the 4 seed.
Crazy.
Right? I mean, what a year for Hurricane this year. Austin McRoberts has been spectacular this year, and that Crimson Cliffs game, they only lost by 5. So that defense kept them in that game. Hurricane could surprise some teams in this playoffs. Wouldn't be surprised to see them put together a run.
For a long time, this region was teams in Cache County versus teams from Southern Utah, Washington County, maybe Iron County. But realignment's changed that a little bit. So one of the better teams in this region is Provo. How do you like their odds to prevent another Logan versus St. George final?
Feels like they've been under the radar this year, but as they've gotten in region, they've kind of found themselves and who they are. It's all going to be on the shoulders of Garrick Orchard. I mean, this young man, over 2,000 yards passing, but he needs Ronnie Wright. 1,000-yard receiver, 12 receiving touchdowns. That duo has been spectacular. They've got to find a way to free them up. And so if that's Philly Moiatu running the football, they've got to keep some versatility in that offense. And if they can do that, they've got enough weapons, and I think their defense can be good enough to keep them in games. But if a team takes away Wright, then it'll be interesting if they've got enough versatility to be able to keep pace. But it is a team that I think has enough to be able to compete, to get to a semifinal, but they're going to need to find some more depth on the offensive side, I think.
Provo's a few plays away from being 9-1, right? An out-of-state game is their only real blowout loss. They've got 3 in-state losses. One was in overtime to Morgan, really good Morgan team that we already talked about. One was in the final seconds, a game that they probably feel like they should win. There was some controversy on the road at Crimson Cliffs, and the one against a dominant Springville team when they scheduled up. Provo's really, really good. It's easy to look at that record and say, hey, 6-4. Provo, you don't got to worry about them. No, Garrick Orchard, Malik Philly Moiatu at the running back. That's a really good offense. You've got the DeMartinis on defense. Provo's got the pieces, and they feel like they're a team that's built for a playoff run.
They started 1-4, and so my thing is, it's just they won games in their region, which you got to do, right? But what does it look like outside of their region? And that's where, for me, it's like we'll find out early.
There were close games. Morgan and OT, right? Last-second loss with Crimson Cliffs. Here's a few other teams with interesting storylines. Interested which one of these, or maybe multiple, you guys want to jump on here. Skyview, Stansbury, Highland. Any of these teams, and what we know, might be a top-heavy, but can even break through. Who do you like?
I think Skyview is a team that their record doesn't look super impressive, but they got so many pieces with experience that have come back from really good teams. And, playing in Region 11, they're tested. Clark, I mean, the quarterback is a multi-year starter for them. 63% completion percentage, 2,700 yards, 33 touchdowns this year, and thrown to Oxborough. They've got a running game. Stokes and company, they've got some losses, right? The Ridgeline one, everyone loses to Ridgeline. A disappointing one with Stansbury and a couple early on, but they've been getting better as the year's gone on. I think they've got enough depth on this roster to put together a run. I think teams got to be ready, looking out for the Bobcats.
Coach Alder seems to always deliver a playoff run. I love Coach Alder leading that team. I agree with you. I think Jack Clark, Xander Stokes, very good offense. The defense has got to come to play. That's where Skyview is they've got to show me something.
Vulnerable.
Yeah, they've got to show me something there. And then I look at Stansbury, and it's a similar story for Stansbury. I love Brighton Rutzel in this offense. They've done a lot of really good things. They've got some studs on defense, specifically Bronx Baker, the Cal commit. He's going to do a lot of really good things defensively. Can they put both sides of the ball together in the playoffs when they play these good teams? You look at their schedule, they've got the loss to Green Canyon. They're going to wish they had that one back. And then, Dan, you mentioned it already. Everybody has lost to Ridgeline. You can't put too much weight there. But everybody else, Stansbury's played really, really well.
The bracket here, interesting for Stansbury. You see that game against Mountain Crest. That was a doozy of a game. They get the game winner with 4 seconds left, and they have the potential to match up with Mountain Crest again. It'd be interesting to see if Mountain Crest has revenge on their minds, if they could maybe upend Stansbury. But it's been a great year for the Stallions, and they are going to be, I think, well-positioned in this tournament.
All right, stay with us. Coming up next, can West run the table? Who will challenge the 1 seed in Class 5A in terms of being a viable championship contender? We'll get to that. Stay with us.
Bucket list hikes, local races, challenging adventures, that one goal that means so much to you. Salt Lake Running Company has the gear and expert advice you need to start and finish strong. You'll be crushing that goal before you know it. With our trained and knowledgeable staff, an award-winning custom shoe fit process, and the head-to-toe products you need, SLRC will gear you up for your goal. Shop in-store at any of our locations along the Wasatch Front or shop online at slrc.com.
With a TabSpend checking account, you earn big rewards. It's hard to not make a scene.
Cash or card?
Oh, my card's right here.
That's a big card.
You should see how much it's earned me. Sorry, Grandma. TabSpend isn't just another checking account. It's packed with benefits.
How do I get one?
Just scan this QR code or go to tabbank.com. It's all online and super easy to get started.
All right, let's get to Class 5A now. Jeff and Dane, curious about your thoughts here on West. We were talking earlier about teams that have been tested, so you know what to do when they get one of those tense minutes. West has been blowing everybody out. You can't coach your kids up to let them hang around, but at the same time, how much you wonder if someone could just stay close with the Panthers, they'd feel pressure in a way they haven't when they've been beating people by an average of 7 touchdowns.
Yeah, I think this is kind of a tricky position for West to be in, right? They had a tough non-region schedule, but then they get in their region where they're clearly the best team in that region. And, you know, can they keep locked in preparation for a state tournament run? And Camden Lapati has been spectacular this year, 2,000 passing yards. Louis Hamilton, I mean, if you haven't seen Louis Hamilton play, get to a West game and keep your eyes open because he's that quick. This guy, super fast. They use him in multiple ways in this offense, and that defense has been really good as well with Lapati and company. They beat Timview. You see the loss to American Fork, a game they were in, had an opportunity to win that one. I'm curious to see, you know, if they can get their mindsets focused for a playoff run. But look, number 1 seed for West. I mean, this has been a program that Coach Solovey has been building the last couple of years and rewarded with the top seed. And they'll have home games through the first couple rounds. Excited to see if they can continue the run they've been on in the regular season.
It's going to hurt for a minute. We're going to talk about Boise State, and I know you don't like it. But when you think back to that Boise State run, they played it, you know, in the WAC and maybe those early days of the Mountain West. And the question was always, who have they played? Right? Who have they played? They're dominating. They're blowing teams out, but who have they played? Well, then they would go and they'd play up, and it would be in the trenches that everybody was, like, surprised that Boise State could compete in the trenches. That's the difference with this West team this year. They are as physical as I have ever seen from a West team. We were there at that AF West game. AF, they have an entire brand built around their physicality, and West went toe-for-toe with AF. That game was close, down to the wire. When West is going right, that offensive line is dominating. You saw it all year long. I don't care who they've played. When you have that kind of size and strength up front, you're going to be able to compete with anybody you line up against.
What do you think of Fremont? Are they one of the best challengers, the best challenger? How do they stack up?
I think they're a strong challenger. I think that passing attack with Tua Tagovailoa makes them really, really difficult to deal with. And, of course, Celesi Moa, you're going to have to bracket him every play. But, they've been able to find some depth in their running attack, which I think is important. That Farmington one was kind of the one that surprised me. Some injuries, and Moa didn't play in that one. Kind of got stung a little bit, but you see their bounce back there. And look, this offense, they're going to score points. And so for me, you're going to have to find a way to outscore them in a game. And I think the fact they've been able to find some other guys out of the backfield is going to help them. But look, with this offense and Tua Tagovailoa and Moa, that's going to be a duel. It's going to be hard for anyone to slow down.
Yeah, Cade Hadley at running back, he's been really good. He's a really physical runner. They look to him a lot in the red zone. This is more than just Celesi Moa. It all starts with Celesi Moa and Manasseh Tua Tagovailoa. But that offense has some weapons, and you've seen guys like Slade. They've stepped up, and Cade Hadley. And then defensively, again, they're more physical than they get credit for. Jack Masters is very physical at that defensive line spot. I think he has 4.5, 5 sacks coming into the playoffs. He's good. He's big. I was surprised with the way that Fremont was able to compete with that physicality. They scheduled up in a big way in their preseason, I think knowing that they had a little bit of that West syndrome, that they were going to get into region and they weren't going to be tested quite as much. They played corner, they played Davis, they played Weber, they played 6A teams that are expecting to win a state championship. That's going to help them as they make a run here in the playoffs.
Let's go to Utah County. There's a couple contenders there. How about Springville?
This has been the story for me. I did not expect Springville to have this kind of a year. It's been fantastic. And you look at their offense with Valetti and Nafahu as Beckett Burton. They've got a lot of pieces there. Run the football extremely well. They've shown they can throw the football, be very successful at doing so. And look, it's been a group that their defense continues to be really tough. Look at that. The last 4 weeks, they gave up 13 points in region play, and that includes games against Timpview and Wasatch as well. So I think this Springville team is going to be really good. And I don't think anyone wants to play Springville the way they can run that football.
No, they are. You talk about teams that are built for the playoffs, and this is that, right? The temperature starts to get a little bit colder, and you don't want to tackle people. You especially don't want to tackle 3 different people, right? Valetti, Lisi Valetti, Max Harris, Nafahu, they've all been. They're just big, dominant, physical running backs. You look at this schedule, man. Springfield's just been there all year long. The only loss is that close loss, 3 points at Orem.
They have an opportunity in that game.
They could have won. Yep. They could very easily be 10-0. Coach Valetti, he's done a great job. He's had Springville there every single year. The play of the quarterback Burton has also been impressive here these last few weeks. I think Springville could make a run. I know nobody wants to play Springville. That's a game that you're going to remember the next week that you had played Springville the week prior.
Yeah. You mentioned Orem, so what are the Tigers' chances?
Man, Orem's good.
They're good.
Orem's really good. I think at a 4 seed, they're feeling like, okay, we're a little underseeded here.
But it feels like Orem in the playoffs, right? Some of those state championship teams, they were lower seeds as well. They don't care about the seed line.
They test themselves out of state, and that kind of plays a role there. They've got talent. You look at Tayden Kava, quarterback, Kaule Akana, does a little bit of everything. I don't know if he's a safety, a linebacker, wide receiver. He does it all. They have Lopeti Mawala coming off the edge, 18 sacks this season. They've got college talent. This feels like those Noah Sewell, Puka Nakua type teams at Orem where they just have guys everywhere. I didn't even mention Isagali.
Yeah.
They've just got dudes up and down this team. But to me, Orem, it always comes down to how they play up front and how disciplined will they play when things get tough.
Haven't lost to a 5A team yet. Lone Peak playing up and then out of state also. Woods Cross, you specifically said we have to talk about Woods Cross.
We have to talk about Woods Cross. First region championship for the Wildcats since 2014. And this was a team that I had someone tell me early on they might win that region. They end up doing that. And look, Vili Tapa Tautai. If you haven't seen this young man, I was asking an out-of-state coach. We asked Rigby. They played Rigby earlier this year. He said that might be the best football player I've ever coached against. Can run the football, run so extremely well. He's got 16 rushing touchdowns this year, 5.5 yards a carry. He also plays defense. He's a backer. He gets in the backfield. He disrupts the opposing team. 5 sacks this year, number of TFLs. Goes both ways, and you better be ready for all 32 because he's going to bring it. And this is a Woods Cross team. When you see them take care of business in that region, yeah, they lost to Brighton. That was that crazy weather week, multiple delays in that one. But this is a team that can run the football and they can throw the football. That's what makes this offense for Coach Benson a little bit different with Simmons and company. They can throw it, they can run it, and that defense is really, really tough for the Wildcats.
Dane, we saw Westlake play last night. We both came away how impressed we were with their size, their physicality. Woods Cross went to Westlake. They won 28-10. They dominated that football game. Westlake is built Again, like Springville, they are built on the ground game and they are built by defense. They sprinkle in that passing game. That's an element they haven't had for the last couple of years. Woods Cross can make a run in these playoffs.
You just talk physicality with everybody, right? Starts with West.
I think you're figuring it out. I'm a one-trick pony by classification.
But you know what makes 5A fun? This is a classification that still runs the football. I mean, you've got some open offenses like Fremont.
Yeah.
But Springville runs the football, right? We just talked about West can run the football. They're physical up front. Woods Cross runs the football. Brighton runs the football. Bountiful runs the football. Box Elder runs the football. Like, this is a classification that runs the football.
Could be really some of these brackets we're going to see blowouts early on. This one could have really good games in the quarters, and certainly will by the semis.
Yeah, I look at the 5A bracket, and I think that you can make a case that Orem's the favorite. West certainly is going to feel like they're the favorite, but I think it feels like a debate competition. Like, just assign me somebody, and I can make a compelling argument that they're going to win. There's 6 or 7 teams that could come out of 5A, and I wouldn't be all that surprised. I think this is the most competitive bracket in all of the classifications, and it's the most unpredictable for sure.
Fortunately, it's not about a vote. Settle it on the field.
That's true.
One more break to get in. When we come back, Class 6A. Can the Davis Darts continue their offensive dominance? Which teams will head to Rice Eccles? Will it be Corner Canyon again? When everything's said and done. We finish on a high note after this.
One of those long days working on your feet? Turn your aching feet to happy feet at Salt Lake Running Company. Our award-winning trained staff will provide a custom shoe fitting that will help you find the shoes, inserts, and socks that will make your workday the best it can be. Locally owned and operated for 30 years, SLRC offers rewards, training groups, races, and free community events. Visit us in-store or online today at slrc.com. Your work feet and workout life will get a boost.
Welcome back to the UCCU Saving Spotlight.
Today's play of the day goes to Becky, a single mom who just got her son Max a youth debit card from UCCU.
This is a big win for Max, who knows that UCCU mobile banking makes it easy for his mom to add money to his debit card anytime.
It's also a big win for Becky, who knows it also makes it easy to monitor her child's spending anytime. Final score, 1 happy son, 1 responsible mom.
With the assist from UCCU.
All right, Class 6A. We might as well just start with a 1 seed. It always comes down to Corner Canyon anyway. 6 straight title games, four championships, the last 2. Can they be derailed? Lone Peak got them this year, so they have lost in-state, in-region. Could it happen in the state tournament?
I think the worst thing to happen for 6A was for Lone Peak to lose to Lone Peak, because this Corner Canyon looks like the team I think everyone expected. You look at Hila Bakasuga, he's back, continues to just have a fantastic career for the Chargers. I love the ground game that they found this year with Weston Briggs and company, and to me that's what makes this Corner Canyon team different. They could run the football last year, but this year you've got a prolific passer, young man going to Texas A&M, you still run the football, and when they've been committed to running the football, they win games. And then this defense led by Jaden Pierce, it's tough, it's physical. This Corner Canyon team, I think they're probably the favorite in 6A.
Kai Meza, Jashawn Mayberry, Isaiah Morris, they're all averaging more than 75 receiving yards per game. Kasuga's completing 65% of his passes. He looks poised. When they're right, they're really tough to beat. That offensive line anchored by Eason Tafa, the USC commit, they're really good. They're really dominant. They've got Diesel Dart. He's a dart. He does dart things. Manasseh Brown, kind of those young up-and-comers that we see the future a little bit with corner, and those guys are showing out really well. When corner's going well, I don't know how they get beat. And what we saw against Lone Peak is I think Lone Peak showed the path. If you can win the line of scrimmage and you can get to Kasuga and force some mistakes, there is a way to beat Corner Canyon. Nobody else has been able to replicate it, and as soon as Corner lost to Lone Peak, it seems like they said, hey, we got some stuff we got to fill, and they've filled it up really well, and they've just been on a dominant run since then.
I think the other thing about that Lone Peak game, though, if you look at it, Weston Briggs was averaging 10 yards a carry.
He was.
But he only touched the ball 12 times.
Right.
I mean, they really decided in that game, we're going to throw it, and it didn't turn out to be to their benefit. And since then, again, they're running the football more. I think when Corner decides we're going to run the football and stay balanced, I don't know if there's a defense that can slow them down.
Tough.
So Skyridge, there's an argument, which probably wouldn't fly at Davis or Mountain Ridge, but there's an argument that they're the second best team in the state, but they also lost 49-14, as we just saw in that last graphic. If they get a second shot, is there something that they could do to make the game look very different than the 49-14 regular season game?
You know, I didn't watch the regular season game, but I think back to that Skyridge Lone Peak game, and what we saw was really the versatility of Keneal Sweetwine and Lincoln Tahi and that duo. Option plays, zone reads, and Keneal Sweetwine able to make enough throws in that game to keep the defense honest, but really allow the offensive line to get down the field and run the football. And if you can keep the Corner Canyon offense off the field, then you might have an opportunity. But we just talked about, you know, some of the youngsters on that Corner Canyon defense, their edge. I don't know if they can do that against corner successfully, but they've got the pieces. Keneal Sweetwine, very experienced. Love the improvement we've seen in his play this year. And he'll even recognize, like, he's made some adaptations to his mental approach, and he seems locked in. Got dinged up. Hope he'll be ready to go for things, but Tahi out of the backfield's been really good for them.
Yeah, I think that they have the ingredients to pull off an upset. It's just a matter of can they put it all together. When you look at corner, yeah, you got to keep that offense off the field. So how do you do that? You shrink the game. You run the football. Lincoln Tahi, Keneal Sweetwine, that's a really dynamic duo in the backfield for Skyridge. They can run the football. Can they run the football against corner? That's a different story, but they can run the football against just about everybody else. I like their defense. Griffin Coons in the middle of all of that at the linebacker spot. He can play coverage. He gets after the quarterback. I like Skyridge's makeup, and I think they're one of the teams that you look at that say, okay, I think you can match up well against corner. It's just a matter of putting those pieces together and finding that path.
Most of the best teams in 6A hug that county line, Utah County and Salt Lake. And then you got Davis. What is the Darts magic? Why are they where they are? And why do people want to see them playing a big game in the semis or the finals and see what they've got?
His name is Trayden Bessinger. That's the magic for Davis. And, I mean, he's had a year that has been spectacular. 76% completion percentage, over 3,500 yards, 44 passing touchdowns, only 3 interceptions this year. And you've got a receiving core with Sparrow and Ita Ihau. There's a lot of guys to throw the football to. I think a lot of people love this team because these are kids that have grown up with Davis, and it really does represent the North right now in terms of, hey, can a Region 1 team put together a run? But you've got a young man who's committed to Boise State, is committed to Boise State. He could be going to a lot of other schools. He's that talented. He's athletic enough to buy extra time in the pocket. You see him rolling out here, and he's extremely accurate. I mean, that throw right there is just so well placed. The options he has are really good. Sparrow's got 7 interceptions as well. Lockwood flies around defensively, over 100 tackles for him this year. Last semifinal for Davis was 2009. I think that ends this year. I think we're going to say it's 2025. This team is really good. We'll see how they match up with some of those Region 3 teams.
It starts with Trayden Bessinger. I want to get back up onto my Trayden Bessinger soapbox that I feel like I've been on all year long. But week 1, Dane, I said, yeah, Jackson Dart. Yeah. That felt like a Jackson Dart performance. Jackson Dart, at the end of his 2020 breakout season at corner, had 3,300 passing yards, a little more than 3,300 passing yards, 48 touchdowns and 2 picks. He also had nearly 1,000 rushing yards. That's an element that Bessinger maybe doesn't quite have. But you look at his passing stats, Bessinger nearly 3,600 yards, 44 touchdowns, and 3 interceptions. Those are Jackson Dart numbers. That's the kind of season that Bessinger has had. Now, what separated Dart and made him so special that we all remember that season all these years later? He had nearly 1,400 passing yards in the playoffs en route to a state championship. That's the kind of performance that it's going to take for Davis and for Bessinger to get where they think that they can go. They can keep pace offensively with anybody. Can they slow anybody down as they get into those point-of-the-mountain schools? They've proven that they can when they've had those opportunities this year, but they haven't played Corner. They haven't played Skyridge. They haven't played Lehigh. Those are tough tests.
Like Corner Canyon and like Skyridge, Mountain Ridge is a relatively new school. It's even newer than those schools, right? But they've gotten very good very quickly. How far can they go in these playoffs?
I think they're going to grow up as these playoffs go along. And Coach Robbins has done a fantastic job in his first year. We had a chance to see them this week, Jeff. And Jackson Hunt, if you haven't seen him, we talked about it on the game last night. He kind of has a feel like next year can be kind of one of those Bessinger years. He's been spectacular. 3,000 yards passing this year, over 26 touchdowns, and leading Mountain Ridge to their first region championship. Cohen Cunningham has been the stud for this group. They line him up all over the field. They'll get him the ball out of the backfield. They'll get him down the field. And then you mix in Titan DeYoung, who you saw right there on that reception. 8 receiving touchdowns. Cunningham has 10. Jackson Hunt, this offense can throw the football. They're sneaky at running the football as well. They find different ways to get the ground game going. The defense would love for that defense to be able to step up, make some plays for them to put together a playoff run. They got guys who can do it. There's I mean, you had a young man yesterday single-handedly win the game. Jackson, last name, remind me.
Jackson Brown.
Jackson Brown single-handedly win that game for this defense. They've got the pieces to do it. It's just, will they be able to gain the experience over the course of this year and into the playoffs to help them in some of those critical moments?
All right, we finish up with another 3-team parlay here, and I'm just going to put my finger on the scale because this is what I want you guys to talk about. It's Lehigh, it's Lone Peak, it's Harriman. We can get the others, but let's start with Lone Peak because I am really intrigued by a team that has the pedigree, has the history, starts 5-1, beats Corner Canyon, brings down the defending champs, but then they lose 3 games in a row in an ultra-competitive region. I was at the Sky Ridge game. It was overtime. You were there. It was fantastic. Yeah. It was a fantastic game, and they had opportunities. They slipped through their finger. Field position, selling for field goals. But 3 straight losses is shocking. Can they turn that around? Because if the next month goes great, nobody's going to care about those losses.
Right.
Well, I think it comes down to their health, especially up front. They've got some injuries along that offensive line that there's no question that's played a role for Lone Peak. And can they get enough offensively? You look at the bracket, they're going to see potentially against Davis in the quarters to go to Rice-Eccles. You know Davis is going to score. That's what Davis does. Can that offensive line, can they get healthy enough to give Cruz Christensen time? They've got the Pula twins. They're really dynamic at wide receiver. They've got a strong running game with Fanua, with Tahi, and with Barney. But it all comes down to health. They've been missing guys. It seems like every week they're missing somebody else, and somebody else comes back and they're healthy. They haven't been able to put that Rubik's Cube together in a couple of weeks from a health standpoint. When they're good, they've proven. When they're healthy, they've proven that they are really good. They can beat anybody. Where is that health at? I think that, for me, that's the big storyline for Lone Peak because, if they've got everybody, if they got a full deck of cards, they can compete with anybody in this bracket.
Any up at Sky Ridge barely squeaked past Lone Peak, but Lehigh took it to them. What do you think of the Pioneers? You talked a little bit about their seeding and their opportunity here.
I think this is a team, they're not underseeded. Their record is what their record is. Yep. But this is a team that's going to play a lot better than a 10 seed. I think this is a team that's really positioned. They've got experience at the quarterback position. Wyatt Bingham, now taking snaps there. They've got a great ground game with Devon Eka. We watch this team, Jeff. That O-line looks huge. I mean, there's a big group up front. And then the guys off the edge on this defense. I mean, this Lehigh team, they've got all the pieces to put it together. They've got some losses in there, some close losses. But if this team can hit on all cylinders in the playoffs, they can definitely put together a run and find themselves back at Rice-Eccles.
Yeah, again, they've got the ingredients, right, from that upset run, from that 10 seed. And it starts for me up front with Matali, Benjamin, and that entire offensive line. I think they average over 300 pounds as an offensive line. That's huge in high school. That's huge in college. That's huge in high school. With Devon Eka back there at running back, they've got the pieces to be able to make a playoff run. They've got to put it all together. And then defensively, I love what they do with PJ Takitaki and Drew and Meredith off the edge. They're as dynamic of a pass rushing duo as there is in the state. So they have those pieces there. They just haven't been able to stack wins consecutively. And obviously, it's the playoffs. You don't get off weeks anymore.
I mean, you saw their record there. 3 of those 4 losses by combined 7 points.
Close,
so, yeah, they've got 4 losses, but they've been in a lot of games this year. Corner Canyon is really the only blowout. And, again, I think, that team can gel, come together. They do have the makeup.
One more team from Region 2. We talked about Mountain Ridge, but Harriman right there put together a really good season. We'll put up their season. You can take a look at these results. How far can they go in this tournament?
Yeah, how well will they be able to run the ball consistently? I think that's going to be the big question. It's an offense built on the ground with Messer and Felipe. They both run the ball extremely well. You've got Ellermeyer there on the defensive side. Their lone loss coming at the hands of Mountain Ridge. That was a game where they couldn't find the end zone. The only touchdown they scored was actually a defensive touchdown. So for me, if they can establish the ground game and find ways to move the football on the ground to free up some of their passing attack, then they can put together a run. If the favorites win early, then you get a rematch of their only loss. That Mountain Ridge game would be at Mountain Ridge this year, or in the playoffs since they're the higher seed. And there'd be a lot of revenge. That's a heated rivalry, those two. So that would be a really interesting quarterfinal game if they can get out of the second round.
Yeah, I love Felice Felipe as a running back, 135 yards per game this year. Tyler Messer at quarterback. To me, I'm with you, Dane. I think defensively, Harriman, they've got the dogs. They've got Troy Ellermeyer. They've got Kingston Mamea, Castro. They've got the dogs on that defense, and I think the defense is going to be fine. It comes down to Messer, and it comes down to Felipe. When they start playing these really, really tough teams, do they have the ability to find enough offensively in the playoffs? They've proven that they can, and then they've also had some moments where they haven't been there. What do they do in the playoffs when all the lights are on?
So you've mentioned we've gone across 7 teams here, and some of these teams are loaded with college talent and that. There are teams that don't have that kind of talent. And for some of these teams to win a game or 2 in the state tournament would be a major accomplishment. Those teams should feel really good about that. Are there any dark horses here you think who could win a game or 2, which would be a very big deal?
I'll tell you, the game I'm most interested in the second round is that Westlake-Syracuse game. Now, the problem is it's an 8-9 game, which means the winner gets to take on Corner Canyon.
It's tough.
So I don't know if they win 2 games, but the winner of that one would be, first of all, great years for both these 2 programs. There was hype around Syracuse before the year started. Westlake, I did not have them on my radar, but man, we saw them last night, Jeff. That offense is super, super talented. Certainly hope Fontaine is healthy, ready to go. He's been spectacular this year. And then obviously with Sika and Sua on the outside for that offense, their defense really good with Off-By and a youngster. We're going to love talking about this young man for years to come in Fale Papalongi. They've got a lot of guys, Westlake does. Syracuse as well, the offense with Ledger White and with Van Komen, been the 2-headed monster for them this year. But I think that 8-9 game, really an opportunity for both these 2 teams to have some youth on it. They've got some experience, but they got some youth guys they're bringing back to get a lot of momentum in for next year.
2 of the best quarterbacks that we don't talk about enough in the state, Ledger White at Syracuse and Boston Fontaine at Westlake. I love that call. Those would be my teams for that dark horse type run. But yeah, when the prize is corner, that's tough. Yeah. That's tough seeding for that 8-9 game, but that will be competitive. Also, look at Farmington.
I was going to add
Farmington started to play a really good football of late. That defense has been good all year long. They've started to put it together offensively. I think Farmington could make a run.
All right, final thoughts. We'll get to those. You want to get those coming up, Nate? Final thoughts right now. We're going to take it to the break. You want to make one pitch for an open division?
Ooh. Oh, I don't know if I want to put this on camera. Yeah, I'll make the pitch. I'm actually a big fan when we talk about the state of the game in the state of Utah. A lot of the teams we're talking about are teams that are familiar year over year, right? And you see some of these powers being built up with transfers and whatnot. And think about this, like, well, what's a way that we can help keep the competitive integrity of the game going? One of the ideas I've kicked around is, hey, we've already got 8 classifications. Why don't we say, let's, I guess it's 7, my bad, 7 classifications. Why don't we make one of those an open classification and just allow, if we've got schools that are dealing with a lot of transfers and have a lot of transfers and utilize that, then let's make a transfer-like classification and then have some other structure below that.
They've done something this in Arizona. I think what you're talking about is a starting point. People can weigh in and tweak it a little bit, but it's something worth looking at and considering.
It's one of the things for me, like, we didn't talk about Granger in 5A, but Granger had a really good year this year.
They did.
But, do we expect them to put together a run in 5A? I don't know, right? I don't know if they can. I don't know how they'll be able to compete against the top dogs that are having a lot of transfers come in. So for me, it's about how do you keep the competition in the sport? And I think one way you can do that is let Granger compete with schools that are building up rosters within their boundaries and schools that are having a lot of transfers come in, and which is fine. It's legal that there's rules whereby that is eligible. Right. Let them compete against each other as well, so you don't have these transfer centers in 6A and 5A and 4A. Instead, you say we're going to pull all the transfers together, and then we'll kind of keep the competitive balance in 5A, 4A, 3A, and so on.
I love it. You may not have been ready, but well done. Thank you. I've heard this pitch.
You've been thinking about it for a while.
I've heard this pitch several times throughout the year, and I haven't heard anybody that doesn't like it. So I'm with you. It makes a ton of sense to me to even out that competition. I'm sure there's nuances and details that still need to be worked through, but that idea of, hey, look, there's no problem with transfers, recruiting, whatever you want to call it. There's no problem. Let's just let those schools play with those schools and let everybody else play with everybody else. Makes a lot of sense to me.
All right. A reminder, you can watch all of the championships live on KSLSports.com and on the KSL Sports app, as well as the KSL Plus app. Download the app today. All the best high school coverage from Game Night Live and KSL Sports Rewind is there at your fingertips. Plus the best coverage from a big game later this evening in Provo. You may have heard a thing about it. The red and the blue, the Utes and the Cougars, a couple of nationally ranked teams. Get the app and follow along. That'll do it for us. Thanks for joining us. We'll see you at the games.